Hey, babe, and welcome to the Peripeteia podcast, a talk show for women. This is the place to talk about how we're ditching our bad habits, long-held patterns, and limiting beliefs. The time is now to stop outsourcing and start insourcing our happiness and bliss. Am I right? I'm Heather Lowe, your empowering life coach, ready to guide you on this incredible journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and freedom. If you're feeling stuck in the cycle and wondering what life could look like if you liberated yourself, well, I've got something just for you. I created a free transformational guide to help you take those first empowering steps towards a healthier and more fulfilling life, the one that you desire. This guide is packed with practical tools, mindset shifts, journal prompts that dig deep, and real life insights to support you in making changes that truly stick. So, if you're ready to explore what's possible, head over to ditchthedrink.com and grab your free transformational guide today. Again, ditchthedrink.com. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now, let's dive into today's episode and get inspired to create the life you deserve, like so many other babes are doing right now. Here we go. Hi, welcome, Katey DiStefano. Oh my gosh, did I say your last name right?
You nailed it.
Okay, good. Listen up. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. You're like a perfect example of why I started this podcast, just to trick people that I love and admire into coming to talk to me. And you said yes, which I cannot believe. We met on Instagram. You're a writer, an influencer, a content creator. You are a freaking comedian. And I adore you. And I warned you for this call, like, be careful, because I'm going to probably ask you to be my co-host here because I just love you. We're going to talk
I would
about
have a
all
plan.
things, the middle-aged things, right? The perimenopausal things. But I want to start with going back. I met you when I think you were recently divorced.
Yep.
Going through a divorce
Probably.
or recently divorced. So can you take me back to when that was
Yeah.
and where you were at that point in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So way back, I worked in publishing in Manhattan for 10 years. And when I had my son, I started to stay at home, which I think was really the transformation for everything. I I ran an Etsy business for 8 years. I did all kinds of like MLM stuff, and I sold jewelry for like Stella and Dot. I don't know if we're allowed to say like brands. Like I did kind of a little bit of everything. I worked on this really big startup project that fizzled out and I think really affected my marriage. So 2010, I stopped working in the city. In 2017, after a bunch of years of just me really drinking heavily, my ex-husband asked for divorce. So before then, I had just started my blog and I was creating content to go with my blog on Instagram and Facebook. And when he left, I was just like, all right, well, I can't really be that funny right now. So I'm just going to be raw and just like be myself and use, this platform to just share, I do have a writing degree. So my background is in writing. I always wanted to be a writer. And so I was really feeling like that pull to write again and start to create again. Um, that's where my blog got its name, The Mother Octopus. That's where my handle came from because it's kind of tragic, but the female octopus, when she's pregnant, she lays her eggs and then she guards them, like, meticulously the whole time that they're growing. So, she depletes herself of food, she doesn't hunt, she doesn't eat anything, and she just withers away, and once the eggs hatch and the baby octopuses are born, the mother dies. Mm.
Oh,
Tragic and dark, but it also I thought was a
also
really great.
so relatable.
It was so relatable to me
Yeah.
as a mom because I had these kids and I just was staying at home and I was giving them everything and I just lost my identity completely. And I was so lost and sick from the drinking and I didn't know I was clinically depressed, had no idea. So it did that to me, I think, because I was dealing with so many things at once. Um, so it led to my ex-husband leaving, which completely shattered me. And I used my platform a lot to pour into that. And I did get a lot of new followers from that. I think it resonated just kind of being raw and open and um talking about like how it's okay to feel like absolutely broken and like, you know, confused and you have your life ripped out from underneath you and you have little kids and I didn't make it look easy because I did not have an easy time of it at all. Um and I struggle with having my parents still live far away. My dad has since passed away, but um my parents were 6 hours away, and I live down here on Long Island, so that was another thing, like, not really having them here to like, be with me and to help out and things like that, so, um, I just poured everything into my writing, and, you know, as a writer, I think as any artist will tell you, like, they do their best work in times of turmoil and struggle, and that was definitely the case for me. So I think I had a lot of new followers during that time because I was still doing like funny stuff when I could. Um, but then just really writing just really honest stuff about my pain and turmoil at that time.
I think that's what the world craves, and especially the social media world, because we see a lot of what's shiny and filtered, right? And that's great. I mean,
Mm,
that's inspo, that's our Pinterest board or something, right? We follow people that inspire us in that way, but true connection comes from sharing the pain and being real.
yeah.
And I bet you get that feedback. I do too, like, oh, you're just so real. But for me, a Wisconsin gal, it's like I wouldn't know how to be any other way. Like,
Yeah.
I only know how to show up exactly as I am,
Yeah.
and people want that.
Yeah. That
They
was
trust
another
that.
thing that happened with me and like a lot of the other content creators that I met when I first started my journey. And I had like this little group of people that I'm still friends with today that we all kind of shared each other's content and became really great friends. Um, but it was at the time that blogging moms were doing like, the whole, white kitchen, white counter,
Yeah.
perfectly, everything. Kids are perfect, hair is perfect, makeup's perfect, workout regimen, like all of that. And then a bunch of, a bunch of creators just kind of came in at that time, like wrecking balls, being like, that is not what's happening.
Oh,
Like,
it's so refreshing when people are like, "This is a regular house, and there's laundry on the couch."
yeah, like,
And this is a
okay.
regular house, and there's stuff there.
Right, like, okay, we love to have them for aesthetic, like you say, like, inspiration, like, that's great, like, it's nice to look at, but, like, at the end of the day, this is what we're really like. We're messes, and our kids are
Right.
messy. We lose our temper, and our house is messy, and there's boogers on the wall, and, like, I am exhausted to the point where I don't wanna get out of bed for 5 days, like, this is what really I worried that, like, all of that the messaging from, like, the perfect moms was doing more damage, so I was like, "I can't pretend to be that, so I'm just gonna be myself." Like,
Which is just so great because the
yeah,
perfect moms are uh, perfectionists and people please. They got their own issues. They have to make it
yeah,
look good for their
yeah,
own, because of their own issues. So
yeah,
realness is actually a sign of growth,
right.
humanity, acceptance.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. Okay, so you had a big job. You're a go-getter for sure. I mean, that's clear about you. And you're like, well, no, I lay in bed for 5 days straight, but it's like you're also a go-getter. And you had this big job. Okay, then you have kids. You dial it back. You're gonna stay home. Your husband still has a job, and you are hustling doing all these things on the side, trying to make money or trying to keep something for yourself or uh
both,
okay,
yeah,
yeah, okay, hobbies
mhm,
and income and trying to navigate how to do that while being home with the kids, which
yeah,
so many of us did.
yeah,
And there's no solution. People that go to work, people that stay home, people that try everything in between. It's all
yeah,
hard. Hence the mother octopus who's just changing her identity completely. Her
mm,
priority has just changed completely,
yeah.
just to protect the babies. So
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't I mean, it may be a bad way to look at it, but I tell my friends who don't have kids yet, like, be careful because your children will consume you if you
yeah,
let them. Like, they will consume you till there is nothing left. And that's what happened to me. Like, I just lost everything because I was a mom and I had nothing else going on really that I
mm,
could pull from. So it was really bad for someone like me.
yeah.
I can't say that it would ever be the same for anyone else. I don't necessarily wanna say I understand everyone else's journey, like, because some women are made to be stay-at-home moms and they flourish and they love it and they get so much out of it. And I
Mm.
I I was also getting a lot out of it, but I needed something else.
So alcohol was a little bit the answer at that time. It seems
Yeah.
it was the rise of mommy wine. I mean, if you're like me, it was the rise of mommy wine culture. It was socially acceptable and encouraged.
Yep.
And what you did need was softening of the headspace, probably, right? And those evenings of dinner time, bedtime are long, and wine takes the edge off of that. And
Yeah.
it's a little bit boring to be
Yeah.
on repeat like that with your kids, answering the same questions and doing the thing. We're also supposed to be so grateful for the opportunity to do this, right? So the guilt of like, I'm not loving this all the time. I'm not loving conversations with, 3 and 5-year-olds or whatever.
Yeah.
So wine is a good friend. I mean, for me, it was wine during that time. What was your experience? Is that when you sort of went to alcohol and it started to escalate, or had it always been there?
Well, my struggle is genetic, I think, or was. I mean, I have been told by my therapist and my psychiatrist that I probably wasn't a full-blown, like, alcoholic, because I was really only drinking in social situations, but I was drinking to black out when that would happen, like
Oh, when you got a chance to get out, you were
yeah.
balls to the walls.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
100%. And it wouldn't take a lot necessarily, like, maybe 4 or 5 glasses of wine, which could is
Yeah.
probably for some people, but, like,
Right.
that would do it for me, and, a lot of time, I wouldn't remember the next morning if my husband and I had sex the night before, like,
Right.
things like that, which are problematic.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I'm very sure that he was having these concerns and never really voicing them to me. Um, so it kind of just went on unchecked for a long time. And we were always drinking in social circles. Like I said, we had a really close, tight knit group of neighbors who had kids. And so we would walk to each other's houses all the time, like on
Mhm.
weekends, and we would do get togethers and we would all be as drunk as the next one. It wasn't like, I don't think it was like I was always the drunkest person in the room. I just think, we were all kind of doing it that way, but maybe other people were doing it for other reasons. I just knew for myself, it was to go away. It was to numb out and be not in this life,
Mm.
which is
Mhm.
sad, and it's terrible for my children to hear that now, but, it wasn't them, it was me. It wasn't them, it was me.
It was survival at the time, and it was avoidance of the real things. I mean, me too, I poured alcohol on my thoughts because I didn't wanna hear them.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of my marriage,
Mhm.
which we survived through it, but I didn't know that we would, and I didn't wanna hear that. I didn't want to if I listened to myself, what decisions would I have to make and what consequences would there be? And I kinda didn't wanna know what I thought about that, so alcohol numbed all that out. It was an avoidance of me to me.
Yeah, 100%. Like, all those things that I probably knew that my husband was feeling and thinking, instead of us having a conversation about it, I drank more to hide how bad I was feeling about all of that. My
Right.
father was a very big drinker, and in my father's side of the family, I believe it ran kind of from his dad to my dad, and my mother always warned me when I was little, like, "Katie, be careful because this
Mm.
stuff can be genetic, and I don't want to see you go down, like, the same path that I've seen others go down in this family." So, um and I'm not talking about, like, side of the road, like, hobo. I'm talking about people who drink socially
Yeah.
and drink too much and probably too often. In my dad's case, it was different because he was the man. But, I think that I was doing probably a lot of what he was doing too. This is something that I need to really start focusing on writing about, is my dad and my relationship with my father. He passed away last December. Um, and he had stopped drinking about 2 years before, which actually caused some medical complications for him. Um, but I just think understanding what he was going through when I was little, like, looking back on it now as an adult and being like, "I can't be mad at him because I am him and I understand."
Mhm.
I understand.
Mhm.
He was drinking because of his circumstances that he grew up with.
Yeah.
He had a really mean dad. He was one of 7 kids. Like, he didn't have it easy. He was drinking because he was trying to hide the pain of his childhood.
Mhm.
So when I think of it that way, it almost makes me feel closer to him. Like, I understand that. Instead of being mad at him for not being around as much or for me feeling abandoned by him, I I understand that those feelings are still there, but I also see a human being in him, and I feel compassion for him in that way because I know how it feels and to not have control over it and not really know why you're doing things, but you're just doing them, you know? And a man in the 80s, whatever, it was a different time in life for him, but
Yeah.
like just seeing that kind of come out in me and feeling like we were the same person. Like, you think you would grow up and be mad at your father who you're probably drinking because of to some
Mhm.
extent,
Yeah.
uh, but then also have that empathy to be like, "Well, I get it. Like, I understand. He was
Yeah.
doing it the same reason I'm doing it," you know? Like, so it gives you kind of just a different perspective on things, and that's another thing about perimenopause is, like, becoming a woman and this, like, I'm so grateful that I get to be alive right now because we would have never believed it, right? Like, when you were in your 20s, you were terrified of becoming 40, and when you were 30 in your 30s, you dreaded becoming 40, like, "Oh my god, here it
Yeah.
comes." And since then, my husband left when I was 40. And so, I mean, a lot of the transformation that I've had since then, I'm 47 now, is because of that also, but just as like, just personally, I can see myself being like, "Whoa, this is gonna be friggin' awesome." I love the person that I'm becoming.
Mm.
I love the woman that I'm becoming.
Mhm.
I don't know if I love the person I'm becoming because I still struggle with a lot of things. Like I said, I have ADHD, which really I'm struggling with. I'm waiting to get maybe some new meds. Um, but all just I would not have guessed that I would be excited to be this age when I
Mhm.
was younger. I would not have guessed, and I'm
Totally.
freaking pumped.
Oh my god, I love it. I love it so much. First of all, your story with your dad is my story with my dad too, so it's just crazy. My dad also, had a real bad alcohol problem. Parents were divorced because of it, fear abandonment, the whole thing. But he quit
Okay.
drinking when I was very young. He
Yeah.
didn't work any sort of program or anything, so he, found other ways to dysfunctionally deal with all of his issues, but he
Mhm.
didn't drink. And, he also passed away, years ago, and I was never sober. He didn't know that I got sober too, and I always wanna, like, talk to him. I do talk to him, like, we both went through the flames and came out on the other side, right? So,
Wow.
and now I see there's, like, a he was also a bartender, and there's an elk and he's a very, like, charismatic guy and a likable guy and liked the
Wow.
party and all of that, and,
Thank you.
whenever I'm at this alcohol-free brewery, I'm just like, I wish my dad could be behind that bar slinging these alcohol-free beers, like, he would
Wow.
have been so good at that, and
Yeah.
that opportunity was not available to him, in
Yeah.
the '80s, like you said, that wasn't a thing, but he would have absolutely thrived there,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I definitely have that in common. A lot of my clients have that too. Like, we have an alcohol problem, but ours is like a little bit fancier than what our dads look like. Our dads were
Right.
like, it's like we never wanted to be our dad. And then here we are, we're kind of like our dad, just look a
Yeah.
little bit different because
Yeah.
we're, women or whatever. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. The cool thing is you have this healing and compassion. You had to get sober yourself to have this healing with him, and that is, like, spiritual healing,
Yeah.
whether or not he's here. It's like and a bigger understanding of him and you and
Yeah.
acceptance and forgiveness and love and understanding, so that's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
I think it probably helped too that my mom was always such just like a pillar of strength and a pillar of like she was always just the North Star to be like, "All right, you're a shit show, but I believe in you. You're gonna get there. You're pure of heart and you have good intentions. You're just Wile E. Coyote at the same time. So like we're fine. You're gonna get there. But I'm
Mm,
watching you and I have my eyes on you and I'm worried about you. And I'm not gonna let you out of my sight." And that's kind of how she always was. Not overbearing, just checking in all the time.
mm,
You know
mm.
what I mean? From the time I was a teenager, Katie, be
Okay,
careful.
so listen to how you talk about your mom, Katie. So there's, like, the original, Mother Octopus. It's like same for me, my mom, my everything, my biggest cheerleader, my everything, and it's like, well, that's what we get as moms and the dads don't get. Just so
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
right? That's what it is to be a mom, to have a mom,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, lucky as we are to have the ones we have. And obviously our kids are to have the ones like us. So the shit shows like us.
Let me bring my 14-year-old son who just had the problem with me posting that sex reel, see if he agrees.
So tell me about that. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Being public, having a little bit public, talking
Yeah.
about your struggles publicly and having children.
Yeah.
So it's like the divorce almost gave you permission, it sounds like, to dive into your writing, and then a bigger like fire inside to share yourself because it was such a hard and dark time. And that's perfect for a writer. You give them something to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, that
Yeah.
is where you're going to alchemize this pain.
Yeah.
Right? And so you started to get it up and out of you by writing, by verbally sharing online. How was that helpful in your transformation?
It was rough to navigate in the early like years of divorce. My ex-husband and I did not start getting along until just the last year. So we had a rough and tumble, ugly, not well behaved all the time, girl with a big mouth.
Mm.
Um, Divorce at first, and it was very contentious, and we did not get along, and it was probably really bad for my kids. So I
Were you shocked that he, even though you knew you were miserable, you were drinking too much, you were unhappy, all these things, were you still shocked when it
100%.
just took you by surprise? And as far as your identity, did you just think you would be a married person for the rest of your life?
Well, that was what I was struggling with, like, that was all I had at that time.
Oh, everything's going to shit, but at least I have a
Yes,
long-term
yes. I'm
marriage.
I'm this
So I'm
guy's
good.
like where I'm part of this family here on Long Island. My family is miles and miles away,
Yeah.
so I don't really have that. So I'm just latching on to some kind of,
And
feeling.
his family was your people too? They were the ones that were near
They
you?
lived my ex-mother-in-law lived in the house behind us. We had a gate in.
Okay.
So when my
So it was
ex-husband.
almost your social life too, and joint friends. You had joint
Oh, yeah.
friends, mutual
Yeah,
friends.
that's
Everything was
really.
combined.
Yeah, and it's funny because I used to do this thing every year, just like a feeling just such bad self-fulfilling prophecies. There's a bunch of them because I did go to
Oh.
therapy for a long time. I actually put my therapist into retirement, and that's one of them.
It's rode off into the sunset.
I remember he
She's
called
got
me,
a
he's like,
condo
"Katie,"
on the beach.
he's like, "I gotta let you know I'm winding it down." I go, "It was me, wasn't it?"
She's like, thank you for all your payments over the years. I'm good now.
Like, "It was me, wasn't it? I'm sorry." Um,
Well, good on you.
so like, damn, I'm powerful, huh?
Yeah.
Um, so, I forget what I was talking about because ADHD and
It's
perimenopause.
your identity and then being part of this family and,
Yeah.
the mutual social circle, and that's the one thing you had going. And then
Yeah.
when that
So
was pulled from you, you're like, I got nothing, but I do have some Stella and Dot jewelry. Anybody wants it?
a ton of it. Um, yeah, like just ripped out from under me and also very real understanding in my head that like, yes, I know we have problems. Like, who doesn't have problems? Of course we have problems. We have little kids. Like, life is chaos right now. How are we not supposed to have problems? But
Right.
from my end, it was always, it will be a conversation and we will go get help and then we'll fix it. It would never have been the end of our marriage. And for a long time up until just recently, and it feels so good now to not feel that anger and that victimization, and just that came from taking a lot of accountability, which I feel like a lot of people don't do. Once you take accountability, it pulls you out of that victim position. The second you're like, okay, I had a part in this, you're no longer the victim anymore. You
And
know,
that helped you pull you out of anger.
100%.
Oh, 'cause you're like, there were things that were
Of
on me.
of course. And that helped me not be mad at him anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It helped me stop feeling like he did this to me. And instead of being like, "Katie, you were really unhappy. Like he gave you a second chance, dude. Be
Almost the same with your
so
dad. Instead
excited."
of being mad at him, you're like, I get it. I understand you. I'm putting
Yeah.
myself in your shoes. You're
Yeah.
using that empathy to be like, it
Yeah.
wasn't good for him.
And I think what happened is so my ex-husband, I'll say it to you. I don't know if we want to put it in on like blast it out on social, but he was in a relationship with another woman who he worked with, and he married her. So they are still together, and she has always been a very big part of my kids' lives. And so that was really hard for me. That was so triggering to me all the time, all the time, all the time. I just could
Mhm.
not get past that. Until recently, I would say it was around the time that my dad passed away, some things came out and it made it really clear to me that it's not the perfect life over there. It's not perfect over there. And I'd been tricking myself into thinking, I'm bad. I don't deserve happiness. He left me for this person and now they have all the happiness in the world together. Meanwhile, at the same time, I have this wonderful man who I just told you is the love of my life. It was I can't even begin. Um, and it was just one day I looked and I go, "Oh my God, what are you mad about? Look at what you have. Look at this opportunity that he gave you. Like you have this awesome second chance. You have this bright future ahead of you where you can do whatever you want now. You're not tethered to this person who lives somewhere where you don't want to be for the rest of your life, which was what I was staring down the barrel of the whole
Mhm.
time I was married because I didn't want to live on Long Island. I still don't want to live on Long Island, but now I don't have to live here anymore once my kids graduate, and get older. So I'm kind of released from that.
You're telling yourself a new story too, because the
Yeah.
story you were telling yourself just wasn't true, right?
Yeah. It's been a lot. And I wonder sometimes if I'm tricking myself into these things, tricking myself into believing these things because it's easier and it feels more positive sometimes. But my girlfriend actually sent me a letter yesterday and she's like, I've been waiting to write this since your dad passed away. I just didn't know how to write it until now. And she was just like, I wonder sometimes how someone can deal with so much and why maybe some things happen to the same people. My brother passed away when I was 16. That led to a lot of my dad's drinking and my drinking and all kinds of unhealthy things in my life, in my little 3-person family that I had at the time.
Mhm.
Um, so like I go, I kind of have just chosen to believe that like all of these lessons and all of these shitty things that happen are just lessons to view the past and the future through. Like, I learned so much about my dad from my ex-husband leaving me.
Yeah.
Like, I learned so much about him, like, and my relationship with him and the good things about him and the bad things about him because of this new trauma that I had felt.
Yeah.
It changed my
Yeah.
brain. It changed the wiring in my brain. And I think every time you have some kind of trauma like that, it does. And I knew my husband was gonna leave me. My therapist said it was a fulfilling prophecy when his dad passed away, was pregnant with my son. And I said, he's gonna divorce me because he's never had a trauma like this. And this is gonna shake him out of his tree. And I was right. And I probably helped out with that. I probably helped out
Right.
along the way feeding into
You pushed
that.
him out of the tree.
Yeah.
You gave a nudge.
My therapist was like, "Great job, Katie. You made that one come true, didn't you, you
Okay, you
dumbass?"
were right. Are you happy? You were right. I love to be right. My marriage is over, but I told you so. I won.
So, like,
Completely losing, but I won.
but, like, I don't know, I just knew it because I was like, you don't feel I feel like every new trauma, it opens up your heart and it opens up your
Yeah.
brain and it gives you more perspective, and I sometimes feel like the people who have the most shit happen to them are the realest and they have the biggest hearts and the biggest,
Yeah.
wealth of understanding and compassion because they've been through it.
Totally.
That could just be me. There are other people who you just see become, like, rabidly angry and never come out of it
Mm. Mhm.
also. So I think just for me, I try to not think of it as a blessing, like, that I've been through all of this stuff, but I
Right.
take it for what it is, and I understand that it's helped me view
Yeah.
the world and
The
people.
poet, Andrea Gibson says something like, when she dies, she hopes like her heart is full of stretch marks. And like that's what it is. Like hopefully your heart grows bigger. And
Yeah.
speaking of stretch marks, us, the Velveteen Rabbits, right? In middle age, right? Like the wrinkles on our face is a life well lived, hopefully a lot of laughs.
Yeah,
We've been through life, and I always think this midlife time for me has been like the first half of my life was surviving,
right.
just surviving the best I could.
Mhm.
And now the second half of my life has been so far has been kind of like hopefully it's the second half of my life, right? My grandma's 101, so we'll see, right?
I had
So
100-year-old great-grandmothers.
like trying to like kind of undo the coping tools that I used to survive in my youth, right? We
Mhm.
just grabbed onto things that would work. And now I'm kind of trying to undo those things,
Yeah,
and getting more real, like you said. And if we get to this age, my life, the same as your, like, there's been so much loss. There
yeah,
has been so much loss. And there's going to be more. Like, the older you get, the more there is. Like, my grandma, obviously, she's lost two children, two husbands, and a long term boyfriend, all of her brothers and sisters, parents, friends, right? If
yeah,
you're 101, it's like, there's going to be a lot of loss in your life. So we
yeah,
have to figure out how to navigate that and
yeah,
how to recover from that and how to
yeah,
let that grief live alongside us, I would say.
yeah, and it probably is, all these excuses or all of these, reasons I or the things that I say I've learned from all this. It could all just be lies I'm telling myself. It could just be ways to cope, right? Like, but at least I'm telling myself positive things where in the past I was way more negative because I was angry and I didn't wanna see the good. And so now I feel like it's a conscious choice to be like, "You've really seen a lot of the bad stuff. So, what are your options? Your options are to stay stuck and be miserable or change your outlook and just kind of be grateful for what it is and what you have," you know?
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't have
Living in
par
the hole doesn't help the people that we love who are no longer here,
Right.
is the thing, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's sort of obviously, it's a wake up call of our one precious life, but it's like, how do we want to live it? Because the end is coming for all of us all the time. And typically, sooner, we always think we're going to have a little more time.
right.
So, how do we want to spend our time here? And I think for you, like, because of the way you're willing to share and express that, is connection with others.
Yeah.
And like Ram Dass says, we're all just walking each other home. And I
Mhm.
feel like you sharing to me what I was attracted to was like, yeah, we can sit in the hole together because then at least we're connected. We have some
Yeah,
connection, right? We're
yeah,
we're not alone. We are not alone. And that alone is enough. And you
yeah,
sort of had this with your neighbors, it sounds like with social connection. You had this with your writing group or your content group. And that connection is what we're seeking, and that
yeah,
is the human experience. I mean, that's
yeah,
since we were born babies, that's what we need to survive is connection. So
yeah,
you've definitely found ways to do this.
yeah,
And then even with, like, so many strangers who
yeah,
feel like they know you,
yeah, and
me
I think
included.
a big part of if I ever sit down to write my memoir, um, a big part of that will be, like, what my whole life was, I think. Like, when my husband left, I was in such pain, all I wanted to know was when it was gonna stop. When is this pain going to stop? Because up until then, anytime I was in really a lot of pain, I would drink and get drunk. And I
Yeah.
did drink for about a year and a half after my ex-husband left, but then I stopped. But it that was what I knew, like, okay, pain, I gotta make it stop. And that's something
Right.
I learned about in therapy, which is a generational thing with younger we're considered younger to my therapist. Um,
Meaning us,
yeah, he's like,
under
nobody
101.
he's like, "Nobody wants to sit with the pain. Nobody wants to sit
Oh,
in the pain. Nobody wants to sit with it
hence
at
addiction
all."
in every
Yeah,
form.
it's all
Yeah.
about get rid of it. How can I make it end?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that was it. Like, no, it was like my everything I felt in my divorce was kind of bringing up all the old traumas from my brother dying, my dad drinking,
Yeah.
a lot of things that happened in my college years that traumatized me. Like, so I just wanted it to stop. I needed like a date. Like, I needed
Mhm.
to know, like, okay, I'm setting my timer on my phone. Like, you're telling me it's gonna take me a year and I'm gonna feel better. Clinging to that.
Like a workout on the treadmill, you're counting down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just
Yeah.
was not the
When's it
case.
gonna be over?
Yeah, and it was not the case at all. So, I think I think that we just want a lot of the pain to end, but we don't wanna do the work because it's easier to just numb out or go shopping or dive into your kids, pour
Yeah.
everything into your kids and being a mom and, you know
And micromanage them if you need to.
yeah, we mask so many different ways.
Our own discomfort,
Yeah,
yeah. That is the sobriety journey. I mean, that's a journey for anybody and any for me, it was alcohol. It could be, of course, anything. I think it's
right.
the human experience to wanna jump ship on
Yeah.
pain so fast. But now, I think it's age too, definitely, like, we've been through enough that it's like, I don't, resist the pain so much. Like, still tragic and terrible and sad and awful and disappointing things happen,
Mhm.
and I know I'm gonna get through it.
Yeah,
I know I can feel those things, and I don't try to push it away.
right.
I kind of allow it to come in and sit with me, and I'm not avoiding those feelings,
Yeah,
and I let them stay for as long as they need to. So it's like we alchemize them differently,
yeah,
right? And it
yeah,
sounds like you've learned to do that too. It's not
yeah,
the pure resistance of it, because that is more suffering than just accepting that you're mad, you're sad,
right,
you're
right,
disappointed. If you could just
right,
say it out loud, it already dissipates a little bit just by
right.
being acknowledged, right?
Yeah, like, giving it that end date, looking to that just the end, like, the destination, you're not doing any of the work. You're
Right,
not
or the idea that then you're gonna be happy,
right.
and you're never gonna be happy. Like, that's the inside job. It's not when this happens, and this happens, and this happens.
Right, right. By being like, "Okay, in 1 year, I'm gonna feel better," and then just sitting back and being like, "Okay, it's another day gone by, like, I still feel the same, but when I get to that date, it's gonna all magically go away." Like, no, you gotta be in this, you gotta be excavating, you gotta be uncovering,
Yeah,
you gotta be asking yourself questions, you gotta be taking a good hard look, you gotta be willing to to go down to the bowels of your soul
yeah.
and shovel the shit and just be really fucking honest with yourself, and that's the hardest thing. That's
Yeah, to go to the underbelly and the dark and the shadow. I'm having my insider community, we're having a workshop on that today with a heavy metal theme, like embracing the darkness,
oh my
embracing our
god.
darkness, and how we can use that as a catalyst for
Oh my
change.
god,
I mean,
send me
I
an
think
invite, I
that's really
wanna
rock and
come.
roll. I'm proud of that. Thank you very much. So
I want to
glad I had
come.
an opportunity to put that in. But yeah, it's like, our pain, our dark, the thing we've been trying to avoid to learn to go head first into it. And
Yeah,
my God, I mean, thank God for your therapist. So
yeah,
yeah, they should be retiring on
yeah,
you. That's hard work. And you do it alongside somebody. I mean, I
and I
like that
wore
you're
him
doing it
out.
alongside a guide who can kind of
Yeah.
help you. Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I think deciding to not just sit and wait for it, I did a lot of soul searching, like, at one point, my therapist was like, "I think you need to do some research on, like, radical forgiveness." And I was like, "That sounds like a big fat no. I will not be forgiving anyone ever, and how dare
Right.
you?"
And especially not my ex-husband and his
Right,
thing.
like, what? Never in a million. I'm
Right.
holding on to this anger because I'm never letting him off the hook for doing this to me.
Yeah.
And that has so changed the more
Oh,
I've been able to understand, you know? And I mean, I wrote something a while back that I posted about how, like, when he first left, I would be like, "You're a coward. You were a coward for leaving instead of trying to fix this, like, for our family." And I can honestly say, and I think it was when I had that realization that he literally saved my life. He gave me a second chance. He gave my kids a new mother, the mother that they needed more, you know? It's like I don't wanna say he's my hero because he would probably laugh at that, but, like, he really I was fighting against that realization that, like, he did the right thing.
and this was like, turns out the best thing that could have ever happened to you.
100%.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you dove into your writing, your
Mhm.
passion, your love, which you wanted to do since you're little or have been
Yeah,
doing, wanted to do more of it. It got you into that.
yeah,
It got you to meet the real love of your life,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and
So
now I
tell me
have
about that. My God, like, dating, meeting, midlife, what? Oh, we wanna know.
dating app. It was
Okay.
met him on Hinge, and we were both kinda just like, "This is a whatever." Like, whatever. He was more newly divorced than I was, but in a way, he had been divorced his whole marriage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope I can say that. Um, and I don't know how to explain it other than he's my and this I thought was the dorkiest thing any people ever said ever. Anytime I heard someone say this, I was like, okay. He's my best friend. Like, there's
Yeah.
no one else I wanna tell everything to. There's no one else's advice. There's no one who makes me laugh harder. There's no one I can be my more authentic self with than him. And that was not the case with my ex-husband. So, we had this moment of I wrote about this a while back. It's a long story. How much time do we
Well, we got all day. Hey, we got the rest of our lives. You're coming back. This is just part one.
So, for my husband and my first anniversary, we planned a trip to Italy. For our first wedding anniversary, we planned a trip to Italy, and it was awesome. I think looking back, neither one of us wanted to be married to each other at that first anniversary.
Mm.
But we were going to Italy, and I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do something really romantic and plan, like, a vow renewal ceremony for us in Italy." And I had, like, an officiant, and I had a string quartet, and I had a limo, like, I had this whole thing. We went up and we got, like, remarried, um, and he hated it. Hated it. Hated it. And I probably knew it was forced too, but I was like, "But it's fun and special, and we have these amazing pictures from it." Which God, it broke my heart to throw those pictures out. I did save some of them for my kids. But, we did Rome, Florence, and Venice. Venice was our last trip. We just one evening, we were going out, we were gonna stop and have a couple drinks, some nosh, like, at, one of these little glorious Venetian little bars. I don't even know what you call them. And as we were walking to it, I started to hear this chanting and like this singing. And I was like, and everybody around is like, what is that? What is that noise? Like, 'cause, you're outside and there's all the bridges and it's just so picturesque. I could die. And all of a sudden I see it had to be 200 Hare Krishnas coming over this bridge, like off in the distance. They're all in their like, their, you know, yoga? No, togas? Outfits? They're all in their outfits.
Uniforms.
Uniforms. Um, some of them had bells, some of them had drums, some of them had, whatever, and they were just singing this most beautiful it was the most beautiful noise I had ever heard in my life. And I was so taken aback by just this spectacle of all these people with just this pure joy emanating from them, and it was magical. Like, when I tell you I had such a moment, I started to cry, because I was just feeling so much, and I was just really leaning into that pure moment of joy and seeing them for what they were and experiencing them as much as
A
I
spiritual whoosh, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%, like and I started to cry, and my ex-husband was like, "Oh my god, what's the matter with you?" Okay, that's who he is. That's just who he is. So that's one example, and then when I met my boyfriend, this was in stark contrast, and I used these 2 things together all the time. Um, we first started dating, we were getting ready to take a trip upstate. He has a place up in the mountains, so we were getting ready to go up there. We stopped into 7-Eleven, gonna get some coffee for our ride, right? We'd probably been together, like, 3 months at this time, and we go into 7-Eleven, and "Let's Hear It for the Boys" was playing on the
Oh my
open
God.
loudspeaker. And at the same time, both of us, as we're walking in, we both start, like,
Dancing. Yes.
dancing full out. The guys
Mhm.
behind the counter start dancing, the guy refilling the coffee started dancing, and I was like, "This is who I'm supposed to be and who I'm supposed to"
Matching my energy.
Right, because my
Yeah.
ex-husband would have been so embarrassed, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
fine because he's more
Right.
reserved. That's what he needed and that's his
Right.
truth, right? So, for me, when that happened,
Another
I
spiritual whoosh.
yeah, like, this is who I'm allowed to be, and it's okay to
Yeah.
be this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say, the people for you are the people that let you be yourself so loud.
Mhm. Yeah.
You feel free to be yourself
Yeah.
so loud.
Yeah, and this might be TMI for
It
Some
is
people,
not. This is
my
what we're here
kids,
for.
my kids know. We take a lot of showers together.
Shower
And
time.
I remember when I first told a bunch of my friends, they were like, "Oh my God, what? The last thing I want when I'm in the shower is my freaking husband in there with me or, someone bothering me." And I'm like, I know it's very strange. I never would have.
This gives a new definition to the everything shower, okay?
When I tell
I'm
you,
having visions.
if you could record what goes on, we're doing bits in there. We're making up songs. We are laughing our asses off. It's like playtime when we go in. Nothing
Uh-huh.
sexual. It's not
Into
like
the bath.
that. Yeah. We're like, you want to go take a shower? Sure. And we're in there like, like making up, changing the lyrics to songs and like just doing bits and voices. And we're just very much like that together.
Oh.
And I'm like, it's not that we're in there like doing anything to each other. We're just in there being ourselves and getting clean at the same time. It's weird.
I love it.
Yeah. It's
I
really
love it.
strange.
That's what we're all going for. So there's a whole lot of forgiveness for your ex-husband for releasing you
Yeah.
to find this,
Yeah,
right?
1,000%. But even in the early days, I couldn't see that because of the anger. I couldn't see through that veil of
Yeah.
anger, wanting to hold on to being the victim. And I think
Mhm.
when my dad passed away, it just really put everything into perspective. And when I was able to see that they don't have the perfect life over there, I don't have the perfect life. They don't have the perfect life. I can let go of that. I can let go of thinking they have it better for some reason because look at
Mm.
what I have. Am I
Yeah.
like what I have here is actually so much better than what I could have imagined and start
Mhm.
taking it for that instead of pushing that away for the sake of being angry. And I
Yeah.
think that's what people mean when they say forgiveness really helps you because anything I heard about forgiveness up until the moment I actually forgave him, I would have told you is complete bullshit. No way. There's no way. I'm never forgiving him ever because there's just no way I'll ever be able to. And then one day it just magically happened and it's so much better. It's so much better.
Yeah. They say it
Really.
takes at least half the time you were in a relationship to get over it.
Yeah.
So if that was 10 years, you get 5 years. If that was 20
Yeah.
years, you get 10 years, right? And I think there's a lot of that that's true. Like you wouldn't get over that history in a week or a day or a
Right.
month or
Right. But then throw in
during
all the
divorce proceedings,
spiciness.
right?
Then throw in all the spiciness from your past traumas. And it's different for everybody because him leaving me ignited so many other things that I didn't even know were in play. And that's where therapy really was amazing.
Yeah, open wounds that were ripped open again that
Yeah.
had never healed,
Yeah.
had never there was always a Band-Aid on top of them, so you never
Yeah.
saw it.
So much. Yeah. And so I know. I haven't written a post about it because I'm like, Katie, no one will believe it. You don't even really believe it yet. Like that you are gonna be
Forgiveness.
the person touting forgiveness.
Forgiveness is real.
Right. Like I'm
It's
still trying to believe it. Like,
normalize forgiveness. Forgiveness is real.
you're like, ew, gross. No,
Like, I'm very
no.
light. You're gonna leave with all your followers. You're like, this is bullshit. This is not what I came for. Who is this woman? Is this a bot?
Hello, your account has been stolen.
Here. Now this is a Christian account. Like, what is going on here? She's
No, true.
fake.
And I
She's
I
fake.
think about I think it too sometimes. And it's so funny. I feel bad for so many of my friends who I've conditioned to like, you
Oh,
know, your best friends are gonna hate your
right. Empower
ex-girlfriend.
with anger. Anger is
Right.
actions. Let's
And
stay
I'm
mad.
like
Let's burn our
"Okay,
bras and
guys.
stay mad,
It's okay,
everybody.
guys. We're friends now." And they're like, "Well, I better not see him. I'm not his friend." I'm like, "No, it's okay now. We can stop being mad. We can all let go."
But we still hate him. How
I'm
do
like,
you
"I'm
I
sorry."
want to ask because you're an expert in therapy, I want to try to get therapy from your therapist through you right now. Right? It's like, yeah, like hand-me-down therapy, the jealousy, that sort of thing, and the feeling of betrayal for one, but just like for me too, maybe we're similar. Like I teased before about like wanting to win or um be better than, or the competition
Yeah.
feeling of the comparison and the jealousy, the idea of like he's doing better than me or he's happy and I'm not.
Mhm.
Or how have you
I
handled
think
that?
for me, the way it affected me, and this is some like serious therapy shit, like, I believe, and I think this is what my therapist thought as well, like, my ex-husband leaving me brought up all of the struggles that I felt of my dad not being home when I was younger because he was
This
out.
abandonment, was that your fault? Was it your inadequacy or something?
I think that's what always thought.
Yeah,
Like
same. I
like
mean, if I was better, then my dad would love me and then he would be
mhm,
here.
right, and
If
he
I
was
was more perfect, if
right,
I was more good.
right, right. And I remember the first day that I actually met, my ex-husband's wife, I came home and I wrote a post about how I had dreaded for 5 years or 3 years or 4 years, however, whatever the timestamp was on it and the day that I met her. Um, like, how I never would have thought that I could stand in front of her, shake her hand, look her in the eye, and have a conversation with her without just disintegrating into nothingness.
And not having her be an enemy.
She was still an enemy to me for a long time, um, but the fact that I even survived it, it was less about her and
Mhm.
more about me even being able
You
to
didn't punch her
survive
in the
it.
face,
I don't
and that was a
it
win.
wasn't that, it was just me being like, confronting the woman who was better than me for him or who he
Mhm.
chose over me. And
Mhm.
that was before I had accepted everything that was really wrong in our relationship and where my shortcomings were and what I could have done better. And, I could have been the one to start a conversation at any point in those 13 years that we were married. Why did you, Katie? Why is it all his fault? Like I, I, I just,
Because self-protection, not me.
yeah, like, and it,
Yeah.
it it was because all those past traumas were driving not even the real issue that I was confronting. It wasn't him leaving me for this other woman. It really deep down was dealing with the issues of my dad not being home as much because he was choosing to be out drinking like with his friends when I was little and being like, why isn't dad here? It's because he doesn't love us. It's because I'm not good enough. And I was feeling the same way about
Yeah.
her and
Well,
about him choosing her over me. So until I was able to really put all of that into perspective, I think I would have never even considered being this person now who can say, "It's fine. It's okay. Like, it's okay. It's cool. I'm fine with it
and
now."
almost grateful.
So great.
Right.
So grateful, and that's another thing, like, you gotta take yourself out of that victim position. I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of women hold on to that, and even married women, "My husband doesn't do any of the dishes. I do all the laundry. I do everything," and you're immediately the victim in your own household. You're a victim in your marriage because you know, you're doing all the work or you've got the mental load of the children or you're, the primary caretaker, all that stuff. So I think even for me, if back in those days when I was staying at home and just withering away, like I think if I had been able to think to myself, Katie, you gotta appreciate this for what it is. This is time you're not getting back. Even though it's really hard for you to be in this space, you have to lean into it and stop feeling like you're losing yourself from this and start thinking of it as you have this wonderful opportunity. But my traumas were pulling me into the bad place, into that victim.
Yeah, and in some ways, it was a choice for you to be there too, a choice that
Yeah.
you wanted to make.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, I could have had a conversation about that at any time.
Mhm.
And I didn't either. I chose to push it down and bury it and pretend like it wasn't there and just live in it and accept that this is my lot in life and this is what I signed on for and I don't get to complain. This is just where we are now.
Mhm.
Um and I think a lot of people there was one thing I wrote about how when we were married, I would get up in the middle of the night to like go to the bathroom and I would look out the window of my bathroom, this little window that like kind of looked out over all the other rooftops in our neighborhood. And I just remember feeling this real sadness about this is all I have now. Like
Mhm.
this is all I have now for the rest of my life. And that there's not gonna be anything more other than like my kids' accomplishments, my husband's accomplishments, this house, being his wife, being their mom. Um, there's nothing else for me. I'm not gonna ever
That
feel
is the mother octopus.
yeah, I'm never gonna feel anything other than what this is right now. And it wasn't good. So that kept me feeling like really in that really it kept me in that dark place. Um,
And you were defined by your roles to other people, and you
Mm.
forgot you are the creator of your own life, girl. Right?
yeah. Yeah. I think when you're weighed down and you're choosing to stay in that darkness and that victimization role, like you feel more comfortable there because you don't have to do the work.
Mhm.
You're not at fault. There's none of this is your fault. All of this is
You don't
happening
have to look
to
at
you.
yourself.
And so now you get everybody's sympathy because you were, victimized or somebody did this to you or whatnot.
This happened to me. Yeah,
Mhm.
this was done
Mhm.
to me instead of
Mhm.
this whole universe is working for me.
Mhm.
I just don't see it yet. Right?
Right. 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 And listen, it could be the Prozac.
The
Um,
tools. Yeah, we should talk about the tools.
listen, thank God for this stuff.
Hell yeah.
Dude, I mean, thank God. This is the best stuff ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So you ditch the drink, you get therapy, you get appropriate medication for yourself,
mhm.
and you take accountability and you forgive, apparently, for real, for true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that released you. And you addressed the past traumas as well.
Yeah.
And you're capable of doing that. You
Yeah.
taught yourself you're capable of doing that.
We'll never know if there could be more that I could have done with it through therapy because I executed my therapist.
Because she's living the good life, getting sunburnt right now under the sun in her
My
sandy private
therapist is
beach.
in therapy right now from being my therapist.
She can afford the best therapist.
I had a meme really early on, and it was my therapist calling his therapist after I leave his office.
Right.
And like a guy like dialing a phone. And I love that
Hello
one.
to this one.
I showed it to him. I was like, I'm writing memes about you now. And he was like, oh my God, it's not like that, but it's hilarious. But I was like, dude, how do you sit here and listen to me and then go on with your life? Like, I just don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
They're the
As a coach, so I can tell you, I love it.
Mm.
I love it. And I have like unlimited text and email support. And everybody's like, I don't want to bother you. Why do you do that? How do you do that? Ooh, who would do that? And I'm like, I'm a special kind of person. Like, you don't get it. Like, I
it
love
feels
that. I
good.
live for this.
Yeah,
I
it feels
want to
good to
hear
help
from you.
people.
These are wins for you and me. Like,
Mm.
I get off on this,
Yeah.
like, I want the story. It's like to be continued. I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, what happened this week? Even
Yeah,
how
where
did
are
that
we?
go when you tried that? And
Yeah.
uh, I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
That's why I was unhappy in all those other careers is because I was
Yeah.
meant so therapists too, they love that they're there for because they love
Yeah.
it. Right. And witnessing somebody like you, I mean, what a star, what a model patient or client, like
Well,
witnessing
I
that
kn
sort of
I know I say to
transformation.
him, like, "Listen, I may be a lot, but I'm an open book, and I come in here, and you don't have to do any of the work. I just bring everything."
Yeah.
Like, from day 1, I went in there, and I'm like, "Alright, here's where we're gonna start."
For sure.
Uh,
They're like, oh, good. Katie's next. For sure. Without
they're
a
like,
doubt.
"Just sit back and relax and let me."
I just watch the ride, just sip your coffee and nod your head every once in a while. And let it rip.
Yeah. I
And
was like,
reminder about forgiveness in the last 5 minutes.
100%.
Oh
If
my
he
God.
could see me now, I know. If he could only
Oh,
see me now.
probably does. Probably secret follow.
Let me tell you, I mourned that relationship after our last
Oh,
session. I did because I had never been in
yeah.
therapy before him, and it was 5 years, and we had our last session where, like, we said goodbye to each other, and I was a mess. It was
He was such an
terrible.
important person to you, and it's such a safe place. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
It's, different than a friend because it's just yours. It's
yeah.
just for you. You get to do all the talking, right? You never ask back like, "Well, and how are you doing? How's your relationships going,
I
sir?"
would all the
You know?
time. I would always be like,
And
"What's
they're
up?"
like, "Okay, back to you, Katie." Right? Like, "My wife is fine,
I
but
mean, I
why
feel
are you
so
still holding my
selfish.
dagger?"
I'm just doing all the talking. It's so selfish. How are you? What's going on? Fill me in.
I know my clients try to do that too, but how are you? Are you feeling better? Like whatever. I'm like, yes, thank you. Remember, you're
Yeah.
paying for this. This is on you. This is about you, girl.
Oh, we had the best time. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Oh,
Truly.
yeah. And then you had to mourn that. But now you
Yeah.
have a new therapist. So
I don't.
you're going free.
I'm raw dogging it
You're
right now.
flying. You're flying solo. You're just
Um,
doing this life without a guide
yeah.
for
You
now.
I'm relying on
Just you and your meds.
my meds and my my willingness to just embrace hope and
Your hot ass best
yes,
friend boyfriend.
yes. Like just like no relationship I've ever had. It's
Mm,
crazy.
mm.
It's
It
just
reminds me of like those heart necklaces for best friends that are like, it's like a heart that matches and like yours fits.
yeah, it's
Yours
really
fits and you know that, you feel that.
and I feel bad sometimes because I remember what it was like waiting to, wondering if I would ever find that or wondering if I would ever find anyone, not like let alone my person. Um,
Mhm,
and that is such a shitty feeling and it's it's lonely and it's scary and just want that validation. You just want to be loved and you just want, you know, someone to look forward to you,
mm,
and that struggle of looking and trying to find and trying to cover up that all that pain with like another person who's probably going to be wrong for you and not help in any way. I just got really lucky that it was the opposite for me. Like I got really lucky that the person that I got out of all of this really was able to hold up a mirror to me so I could love myself at my core for all my good and all my bad, all my
mhm,
fucking weird dancing in 7-Eleven, like all those weird things that maybe in my last relationship I felt bad about because it wasn't aligned with the person. Now I get to see all of those things as something wonderful that someone else really loves and celebrates. And I think a lot of people don't get that, you know?
mhm,
And I just feel like super lucky for that. And I feel like that's because of my ex-husband. He gave that to me. He had to absolutely annihilate me
mm.
first.
He had to cut you at the knees to start,
I
but
mean, just obliterated.
mhm,
But he forced me to take accountability for all of my shit, and he forced me to go back in time and unearth a lot of bad stuff. And he probably didn't even know he was doing that, but that's what happened. And he really, I tell my fake husband now all the time, like that he was my reward.
mhm.
He is the reward that the earth gave me for the pain and doing the work to find the bright side. Like he is my reward.
There's so much hope in that. I love that. This feels like a really nice way to tie this up with a bow, which is just like perfect. Even though it's not because there are so many
So
conversations
many,
for us to have.
so
But it
much.
sounds to me like this midlife is like you're letting yourself be yourself
Yeah.
and you're not resisting your own self or hating your own self, trying to change yourself. You're
Yeah.
letting yourself be yourself and when you do that, you found somebody to match that, right?
Yeah.
Who also lets yourself be yourself. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but my whole youth, we look for what's familiar. And if we had dads that were not available to us, then that's super comfortable to find people that are not really available to us.
Yeah.
And so that's what we sought out
Yeah.
likely, right?
Yeah.
And now you let yourself be yourself and you found somebody who can love and match that
It's also
matches your
uh,
frequency and your vibe.
and it's also hard to let yourself be loved in that as your whole person, like
Including your darkness,
yeah,
including the
like
heavy metal darkness. Yeah,
yeah.
that's part of us, our whole self, not just the shiny parts, and not
Yeah.
just the that everybody loves on Instagram, but, like, the
Right.
real mess that we know in our
Right.
private time,
Yeah,
right?
if you're, putting on the show every day to match your husband's expectations or your partner's expectation or your
Or
kids'
what you think
expectation
your own, what you think you should be, what this
right,
role means or requires, or what would mean, a good mom or an A-plus mom or wife.
right. You
Mhm.
have to be really vulnerable when it comes to being like, "I'm not really those things. This is what I really am. Is that
Right.
okay? Is that okay with you?"
Yeah.
And that is where I am, and I think that's he's just really special, and I'm really
Well, and I will just say this because before we hit record, you're having the best sex of your life. So I want to give all the ladies out there a little bit of hope that if you're going through divorce, if you're switching identities, if you're trying to date or whatever this awkward looks, if you're turning gray and if you're sweaty at night, all these physically, all these like horrible things are happening to us. And then also you have something very delightful happening
Yeah.
to you. That is
Yeah.
a drive, a sex drive and a person to explore that with.
Yeah. Like,
More self-discovery for you.
right. Or who is terrified of me.
Right. But there are the everything showers that are just
I
literally
know.
everything from comedy shows or
I know. I'm like, we're just doing bits in there. I
I
promise
mean,
we're just doing bits.
maybe stream live, if you're looking to grow your audience, maybe the shower show.
Like, we do our best work in there. You should hear some of the songs and things we make up and the voices and just like, oh
Have
my
you
God.
applied to be a writer on Saturday Night Live? I have to ask. I mean,
Gosh.
come on, this is your calling. But until then, I'm just gonna ask you to keep coming back here because I
I would
love
love
talking
to.
to you. Oh,
I would love
how
to.
just I thought we were best friends, but that was really one-sided because I knew you, but you didn't know me. But now I'm sure that we're best friends. Our necklaces match. Can you please confirm that for me?
I'm down. Let's
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, we're best friends. We're matching our necklaces. Thank you for your time today, for your open heart full of stretch marks and still growing, for your raw dog realness, for letting us all feel like we're not alone, and the hope that comes even after that darkness and the pain. And
Yeah.
meds can help. So I love that too.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a blast. You're very easy to talk to.
Oh, thanks, Katey. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Peripeteia podcast, a talk show for women. Don't forget to download my free ebook, The 12 Truths to Change Your Life. Do it for the plot. We'll see you in the next episode. Lots of love.